pranamami Hari Priye vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatade Shatarane. So I'll just read the translation once again. Thus, finding their father so deluded in an act of immorality, the sages headed by Marīci, all sons of Brahmā, spoke as follows with great respect. So the situation here is that Lord Brahmā had a daughter named Vak, and she was very attractive, and Lord Brahma's mind became agitated by her beauty, and he was overcome with a desire to enjoy her, and he actually started pursuing her, impelled by sex desire. So of course this is very abominable, this is very immoral, and his sons, who are all great sages, not all of his sons were sages, but many of his sons were sages. He says here, munayo, that there are many, many sages. And a sage is a thoughtful person, an introspective person, a person who is well-versed in morality and ethics and religion. And so they could immediately recognize, as anyone would, but especially a sage, that this is just plain wrong. And so you can imagine there was a moment there where they were like, oh my God, what's happening? How is this possible? Like, what? They must have been shocked and horrified and wondering what to do. So this pastime is very instructive for us because it's a case study. So in many of the scriptures we have philosophy, we have theory. Like in Bhagavad Gita, we have so much philosophy. But Srimad Bhagavatam is very relevant for all of us because it's full of these case studies. So it's like if you're studying law, you'll know what the laws are of the particular country. You'll also know the judicial process for going through, a legal case. But in order for a law student to actually become proficient in understanding how to go through the judicial process, how to try a case, they need to study so many case studies. Like there is this situation and what to do. What would one do in that situation if you were a lawyer and this is what you had to deal with, or you were a judge and you had to give a verdict on this case. So Bhagavatam gives us the case studies that help us understand how to apply the philosophy. So this is a particularly striking and also very real case study because, here in ISKCON we have our own case studies, some of which are quite similar to this and others which are basically on the same theme of devotees being overcome by the lower nature and being impelled by lust, anger, greed to do things that are irreligious even though they know better. And so this is addressed in Bhagavad Gita by Arjuna, where he asks Krishna this pertinent question that, oh Krishna, what is this force? What is this thing that compels good people to do irreligious acts, even if they don't want to, as if they're pushed into it, forced into it, against their will? And Krishna answers, it is lust only, which is born of the mode of passion. So this is one of the reasons why this example is given. And in fact, Maitreya Muni was hesitant to speak about this pastime because it's disgracing. He was hesitant to say anything that might disgrace a great personality, a senior devotee like Lord Brahmā. But then after some thought, he considered that, well, I don't really want to say this, but I will because it's instructive. It'll help others. It'll help others to avoid the same mishap. And so, yeah, we learned that in yesterday's verse that he hesitated to say it, but yet he said it. And so Srila Prabhupada writes in the Purport that there must be some great purpose. There must be some great purpose. So oftentimes, not every time, but oftentimes when there are anomalous behavior with very great personalities, it's not that the person is fallen, but it's Yogamaya. It's Krishna's Yogamaya that's covering their intelligence and making them do something which is totally out of character, which they wouldn't ordinarily do. And we have some examples of this, like Arjuna on the Battle of Kurukshetra. So Arjuna is a Nitya Siddha. He's an eternal associate with Krishna. He's a very confidential friend of Krishna. And yet he's overcome with bewilderment. He's on the bodily concept of life. He's lamenting. He's refusing to do his duty. He's totally out of character. Why would a Nitya Siddha become, be lamenting to do his duty? So we know that Krishna puts Arjuna in that position so that he can speak the Bhagavad Gita. And then a similar thing happens in Srimad Bhagavatam with Maharaj Parikshit. So Maharaj Parikshit is out hunting, and he's been walking in the forest for some time. He becomes thirsty. So then he goes to the ashram of Shamika Muni, and he's hoping to get a drink of water. But Shamika Muni is in meditation. He's deeply absorbed in meditation, and he doesn't even realize that Parikshit Maharaj has walked into his compound. And so obviously he doesn't respond because he doesn't know that anyone's there. And so Parikshit, he just acts totally out of character, because we're talking again about a Nitya Siddha, a personality, a great devotee who Krishna personally saved while he was in the womb, because this person was the hope, the only hope for humanity in terms of like the next leader after picking up the pieces after the Battle of Kurukshetra. And so Krishna personally saved him, and he was so close, and yet he became angry and threw a dead snake over this Brahmin, this sage. So Parikshit, he would never do such a thing. He revered Brahmins. He would worship the Brahmanas. And so why did he do that? So that he would be cursed, so that he would have to go and take shelter of Srimad Bhagavatam, and so that we would have the Srimad Bhagavatam for our benefit. So in a similar way, Lord Brahma is being overcome here by lust, and we're learning the dangers of lust for a conditioned soul. Like Srila Prabhupada writes in the Purport here that Brahmā wanted to warn his subordinates about human frailties in their dealings with women, or in general in dealings with the opposite sex. So, so this is very good. So one thing we learn here, 3 things we can learn from this pastime. 1 is the danger of lust for conditioned souls in this world. 2 is the appropriate thing to do when we are overcome by lust or any other major anartha like greed or anger or envy. And 3rd, how to respond appropriately when we see a senior devotee, or any devotee, but particularly a senior devotee, a leader, behaving inappropriately. So I'll speak a little bit on each of these 3 things. So first of all, about lust. Krishna speaks extensively about lust in the Bhagavad Gita, especially in chapter 3. He calls it Maha Ashana and Maha Papma. So Ashana means, Prabhupada translates it, Maha Ashana is all devouring. So Ashana literally means to eat. So lust eats us up from the inside, and it devours our pure consciousness. It devours our identity, our eternal identity, because we all are spirit souls. We all have an eternal relationship with Krishna, and yet lust covers us. It destroys our intelligence. Like Krishna also says kamais taistar hrita jnana. It steals, hrita means steals, it steals our jnana, our knowledge. So even if we may have knowledge, it takes it away. Our knowledge is gone. And mahapapma means greatly sinful. So lust is sinful because what is the most sinful thing that somebody can do is to undermine one's faith in the process of spiritual life, or to make another person forget about Krishna, to lead one down the path of degradation. And that's what lust does. And lust also influences people to do the same to others. The person who's overcome by lust, they try to get as many people on board with their lustful exploits as possible, to want to justify their own, degraded consciousness. And also because that's what lust does. It's contagious. It's infectious. So, and he also says something similar, avritam jnanena etena, this is in 339, that it covers our knowledge. So in one place he says it steals our knowledge away. Here he says it covers our knowledge. And he says nitya varina, that it's our eternal enemy. And then duspirena analena cha, that it's never satisfied and it burns like fire. So these are all characteristics of lust that we have to be aware of. That lust is our eternal enemy. Eternal meaning, since we've been in the material world, we've been struggling with this enemy of lust. So we may think that we have so many other enemies. We may think that people are against us, people are criticizing us, people are trying to pull us down, people are trying to cheat us, or, whatever. But all of those things are insignificant compared to the enemy, the real enemy, which is the internal enemy of lust. Lust is the leader of the other ones. It's always like kamadi, lust, etc., etc., being anger, greed, madness, ignorance, envy, and so forth. So this is what happened to Brahmā, that his knowledge was covered. Brahmā is the first created being. Lord Krishna personally enlightened him from within the heart, tene Brahma hridaya adikave, with spiritual knowledge, and that knowledge became covered. So Krishna also says that buddhi nasho, that when one by dayatam vishayan pumso, that when one contemplates the objects of the senses, then attachment develops. From attachment comes lust. From lust, anger arises, and then one becomes deluded. And then from delusion, there's bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, then intelligence is lost. And when intelligence is lost, then one falls down into the material pool. So this is what's happening to Brahmā. He's contemplating, he's looking at his daughter, he's developing some attachment to enjoying, which gives rise to lust. And he becomes deluded, and he forgets who he is. He forgets that I'm the great Brahmā. I'm supposed to be, setting a good example for all humanity. I'm the father of these great sages. And he, losing his intelligence, he's about to fall down. But he's fortunate because he has some nice sons who care about him. So we'll get to that. So he takes the advice of his sons. So we'll get into the appropriate way to handle the situation when we ourselves are victimized by lust, because it's something that's abnormal, unnatural for a spirit soul, but it's very normal for a conditioned soul. So in one sense, it's nothing. It's no surprise. It's almost a given that we're going to be afflicted by lust to some degree or another at, some time or another. It's going to happen to all of us. And Lord Brahmā is showing that even him, so this is kind of like, if even Lord Brahmā can be, overcome by lust, then what to speak of us, insignificant little jivas down here in Kali Yuga, with so many factors against us here. So then what to do when that happens? There's a very instructive verse by Raghunath Das Goswami This is from Mana Shiksha. It's verse 5. So he says, so this is what one should think when one's afflicted by lust, and what one should do. So this is the verse. I'll just read the translation. While here on the revealed path of devotion, I have been attacked by the gang of my own lust, etc., who have bound my neck with the troublesome, dreadful ropes of wicked deeds. I am being killed, crying out piteously like this to the devotees of Sri Krishna, the destroyer of Bhaka. Cry out piteously like this to the devotees of Sri Krishna, the destroyer of Bhaka. O mind, they will save you from these enemies. So whenever lust rears its ugly head, as it will, then we have to cry out to the devotees. We have to call out, oh Vaishnavas, please help me. I'm being attacked. I'm on the road. So these lust and the other 6 enemies of the mind, they're like highway robbers. So we're here on the highway, the Bhakti Marg, the highway back home, back to Godhead, the self-illuminated, splendid, revealed path of devotional service. And along this highway, there are robbers, there are dacoits that will strike when we're least expecting it. And those dacoits are lust, anger, envy, and so forth. And they're carrying ropes, and they're very good at swinging a lasso, like, you know, the cowboys, and whoosh, and reeling us in and dragging us off the bhakti marg, dragging us off the path of devotion, and pulling us into some deviation. And so when we see them coming, then we have to call out, devotees, please help me. Lust is attacking me. Greed is attacking me. Help. Because we need the help. And we need the help so much because it's not just our senses. You know, we may see a sense object and be like, all right, that looks really interesting. That looks exciting. That looks enjoyable. I want it. Right? And at that point, the mind is supposed to kick in and say, because the mind's business is to accept and reject. So the mind of a devotee is supposed to kick in at that point and say, no, that's not going to be good. That's not favorable for your devotional service. Just don't go there. But the mind is supposed to be well trained by the intelligence, which intelligence is supposed to be fortified by Shastra, by studying the Shastra, by hearing from sadhus and guru, by the instructions of guru. And so the well-trained mind will stop the senses by the grace of the good intelligence. But Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that lust has 3 sitting places, not just one. It's not just the senses that are poisoned by lust, but so is the mind and so is the intelligence. So if that's the case, then who are we going to turn to? We have all of our faculties to protect ourselves are disabled. You know, lust has occupied every strategic position within our gross and subtle material bodies, and we're just totally helpless. So that's the situation, and that's why Krishna warns us. So instead of the mind saying, instead of the intelligence being like, oh no, this is not good for you, the intelligence is actually scheming, oh yeah, how to get that thing and not get caught. How to enjoy this thing and not let the devotees find out. How to, you know, do this little thing that is probably not very good for me, but is probably going to be worth it because the enjoyment factor is going to outweigh. And I'll recover, you know, I can always chant Hare Krishna afterwards, and, you know, I'll go to Bhagavatam class, I'll be there on time for Mangalarti, and everybody's going to go on thinking that I'm a really great personality and an advanced devotee, and they're going to give me the garland and, you know, the special treatment, and it's all going to be good. So that's the problem, is that the intelligence starts thinking like that. So we have to really, really pray. We have to pray for Krishna's protection, because above the intelligence is the soul, and above the intelligence is the super soul. So even if the intelligence is defunct, even if the intelligence is totally disabled by lust, but we can be like, please, Krishna, even if I'm in this situation, even if my mind and intelligence give me every reason in the book to do something that's not good for me, protect me. Please protect me. Please give me the good sense to call out to help, to go to a devotee, a senior devotee, and ask for help. Or please, even if I can't do that, please inspire a devotee to intervene. I need an intervention. So this is what happened. This is what the Lord did in Brahma's case, is that he inspired the sons to intervene. So, yeah, before we get to that. So just in a practical sense, we really need to call out for help. It can be the most difficult thing, especially if someone is a leader or a senior devotee. It can be really hard to admit one's struggles, to admit one's failures. But if we were walking down the street and then someone came with a knife and was attacking us, we would call the police, right? We wouldn't think, oh, I'm a great personality, I'll just, deal with it. We would call the police, or we would call out for help. We'd help. Or if our body is being attacked by disease, right, like a heart attack or something, we're going to call the doctor, and we're not going to be like, oh, I'll just, pray to Krishna. So we're going to be practical in those kinds of senses. So whenever we're being attacked and we don't have the power to resist the attack, we need to call out for help. And that especially applies in our devotional service, because that's the most important thing. That's the most precious thing. It's like, I'm not sure if Prabhupada said this, but I think someone told me that Prabhupada said this. But anyways, with that disclaimer, I'll say it. That it was said that if you lose your money, you lose nothing. If you lose your health, you lose something. But if you lose your Krishna consciousness, you lose everything. So if someone's attacking us on the street to steal our money, we'll call for help. If we're in a diseased condition and our health is at risk, we're going to call a doctor. But for the most important thing, the thing that actually is really the only thing that is relevant to our actual spiritual existence, when that's threatened, we're just going to cover it up or sweep it under the carpet, pretend it's not happening, make excuses for it, rationalize it, blame somebody else. No, we need to actually get help. So when these things happen, the first important thing is to recognize. And as devotees, we're supposed to be introspective, right? We're supposed to be munis ourselves, introspective sages, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So we need to be always looking, something happened, and we should note how we respond to things. Just make a mental note. Oh, why did I think like that? Why was I so quick to make an assumption? Why did I try to make an excuse for this? Or, just be very introspective and question our thoughts and question our feelings. To try to get to the root of it, to try to get to the core of where these things are coming from. And we'll usually find out that it's coming from some deep-rooted anartha. And when those thoughts and feelings come up, they're like red flags. They should be red flags to our spiritual intelligence. That, okay, this is an opportunity. This is an opportunity for me to actually improve, to actually get help. I'm feeling that lust is coming up when I see this person. Or it may not be like gross sex desire, but it may be, the subtle kinds of sex life, like dana, labha, and pratishta, profit, adoration, and distinction. Like, oh, this is an opportunity for me to be glorified. This is an opportunity for me to make some mundane profit, to get some fame, to improve my reputation within the society. So when we see those desires arising, we should red flag, this is a problem. This is, subtle sex life. This is not actually a good thing. It's time to look deep and address these things. We need to address these things within ourselves. So that's the first time. So that's the first thing. Sometimes it's said that there, like in education, there are 3 R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. Right? So in these kind of situations, there are 3 R's. And the 3 R's for dealing with our personal struggles with anarthas, the first R is recognition. So recognizing it. And the second is remorse, to feel like this is wrong, I shouldn't be thinking this way. And the third is rectification. So recognition, remorse, and rectification. So the recognition is sometimes the hardest. Just recognizing that we have a problem. Recognizing that I'm not perfect, I'm not the pure devotee that I maybe thought I was or would like to be or hope everybody sees me as. And to be responsible, to handle it responsibly. They say that to err is human and to forgive is divine. But I would also say that to err is human and to recognize our mistake and take responsibility for it is even more divine because it's more difficult. So we need to do that. And we see here that Brahmā did. That when his sons brought his attention to this situation, it took some time, but he finally realized that, you know, whoa, like what am I doing? This is insane. This is like not what I should be doing. And he stopped himself. So sometimes this requires the mercy of the Lord, as in Brahma's case. And then the next thing, remorse. That Brahmā, it says in a later verse that Brahmā felt ashamed. So usually we don't like to, usually we think that shame is not a good thing, but actually in Srimad Bhagavatam when it's describing in the later, I think in 11th canto where it's describing the modes, the characteristics of the three modes, one of the symptoms of the mode of goodness is to feel bad when we do something wrong. That's actually the mode of goodness, to feel bad when we do something wrong. So we actually should feel bad. Remorse is a good thing. It actually helps us because if we do something wrong and we just pat ourselves on the back, oh, it's okay, it'll be all right. You know, then we're not going to take the next step. We're not going to do the rectification. But if we do something which is hurtful to ourselves and especially to others, and we recognize that and feel bad about it, oh my God, that was terrible. I just caused this person so much pain or inconvenience or disgrace. Or like then we're going to do something about it. We're going to apologize. We're going to make it right. We're going to do some service, and so that's the rectification. So the way that Brahmā rectifies himself is that he gives up his body. He considers that this body is the reason that I was, you know, that lust was pulling me, was pushing me in the wrong direction. So I'm going to give up my body. So we're not going to give up our bodies. But when anarthas attack us, especially when lust attacks us and it becomes really intense, then it may be, the noble thing to do may be to give up a position, if we have a high position. Like someone was just telling me that there was one senior devotee who was on a Brahminical board, and then situation in his life transpired that he was feeling his consciousness wasn't as it should be to hold a position on that board, and he approached the members of the board and he submitted his resignation, and they were sad to see him go. They didn't want to let him go, but he thought, I can't do justice, you know, my consciousness is not right. And we know that purity is the force. So if we want things to go forward with force, you know, with power, like we want to strongly spread Krishna consciousness, we want our leadership to be strong, then there needs to be purity. So if one is a leader and yet is overcome by lust or anger or greed or envy and recognizes these qualities within themselves, then the right thing to do may be to step down for some time. Like also one time I was in a temple where they were very, the temple management was very particular about who was cooking for the devotees. So if the cook's consciousness was not good, then sometimes the leadership would see that in them and ask them to, you know, do a different service. Don't cook for the devotees because that consciousness can affect all the devotees. But sometimes a devotee would notice that in themselves that, you know, I think I better stop cooking for a while. Just give me a little time to get out of my funk, you know, to get my mind out of the gutter, and then I can resume the service again. So that's just practical. That's noble because we want to do the right thing. And sometimes the trouble is that, you know, being in a leadership position, it's actually like one of the most dangerous positions to be in because one, Maya is attacking like anything. Maya really targets leaders, ISKCON leaders or leaders in a religious or spiritual organization, because she's thinking that, oh, if I can knock down the leader, then I can wipe out all the followers will be confused, bewildered, or they're going to follow the same path. So that's who she targets. And leaders in ISKCON can feel that. So the leaders have to especially protect themselves, have especially good sadhana. And another reason why it can be difficult for leaders is just it's just a result of being in the limelight or having that honor, that one can start actually thinking that one is a great personality and become proud, thinking one's better than others. That it's very easy to make offenses when one has that tendency that, you know, I'm superior and you're inferior, and develop a condescending attitude which leads to offenses, and then those offenses lead to fall down, loss of taste for spiritual life and attraction to the material energy. So for all these ways, it's difficult for leaders. Leaders need to be very, very careful. And Brahmā is like the leader. He's the creator of the universe, and everybody who exists in the universe at this time is his offspring. So he's like the undisputed leader. So he gives up his position, or he gives up the body, and then he accepts another body which is more pure, and then he can continue. So we may give up the position for some time, take some menial service where we're just going to be, you know, a humble servant of the servants, and gradually build up our consciousness by the mercy of Krishna and the devotees. And when we do that, when we take a humble position, step back a little bit and just pray for and get help from devotees, then the devotees shower us with so much mercy, because it sets a good example for others. And by that mercy and by pleasing Krishna, then the devotee can quickly rise again. So these are some things to do when we become overcome by lust, etc. So then, from the perspective of one who sees a senior devotee struggling or doing something abominable, what to do. So this also shows us the example. So a key word here in this verse is viśrambhāt. Viśrambhāt means trust or faith. So one thing is that the sages, the sons of Brahmā, they had faith in Brahmā. They thought, Brahmā is a good person. He's not a bad person. This is not like him to do this. So we trust that he doesn't intend to do this. It's not a premeditated thing. You know, it's just a slip. It's one of those like accidental fall downs. So they have faith that he doesn't really want to do this. If he had, you know, if he was thinking in his proper mind, if he was in his right mind, he would never do such a thing. So they had faith in him. And another meaning of viśrambhāt is friendship. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur translates it as friendship, or like an intimate relationship. So if we have an intimate relationship with the person, then we can just talk to them. So in this case, the sages, they were his sons, and they cared about him. They really wanted the best for him. They wanted him to continue to be honored and empowered and to stay in his position. And so they wanted to protect him out of concern. And so they spoke to him directly. So if we have that friendly, intimate relationship with the person who's struggling, then the best thing is to just go to them directly. Just go to them directly and say, hey Prabhu, I see that you're struggling a little bit. Can I help? What can I do to help you? And then also the way that they I'll go to another point first. So if you don't have that intimate relationship, then what to do is to go to somebody who does, or go to a senior devotee who can help, who has the authority to say something. So actually there is a situation that Brahmā Tirtha told me about this when he was in New York temple many, many years ago. This was still during Srila Prabhupada's time. And the wife of the temple president, I think, was not a devotee or was not a very strict devotee by any stretch of the imagination. And she was still eating meat. And she was actually offering chicken to the deities. So that was going on in the temple. And there were a lot of devotees in the temple, and they knew that this was going on. And they were afraid to say anything. So everybody was just going on with their services, and for a long time not saying anything. And then finally, Srila Prabhupada, someone mentioned it to Srila Prabhupada, he came to know. When he came, oh, yes, please, Rameshwara, tell us the story. You're the one who spoke up, wrote to Prabhupada.
This will interrupt your class and the point you're making, so I just wanted to let you know.
Okay, okay. So Rameshwara wrote a letter to Srila Prabhupada explaining the situation. And then Prabhupada said, just kind of sit tight, I'll be coming. So when Prabhupada came, when he was personally there, then he called all the devotees. First he called all the devotees together. And then he told them that, you know, this of course is not the correct thing, as you all know. But he said, I'm very happy with all of you for continuing to do your services, for continuing to serve the mission and going on with your duties despite this disturbance, despite this, you know, upsetting situation. And so he expressed his appreciation for the general devotees, like the rank and file devotees in the temple, for just going on without, you know, causing a fuss, without having a riot, without, you know, throwing the temple president out or anything like that. And then he said, you can go. And then he said the leaders to stay in the room. So then the leaders of the temple, then he was really heavy. He was, how could you allow this to go on? Why didn't you stop this? You know, he was super heavy with the leaders. So when Brahmā Tirtha was telling this story, he said that this is instructive. So if something is going on that we see is wrong, that's especially as someone in leadership position, senior devotees doing something wrong, then if we're not a peer, if we don't have a nice relationship with the person, if we're not a senior devotee, then we should just, you know, continue with our services and pray to Krishna, and, you know, we might mention it to a senior devotee, but just keep going in our spiritual life. But if we are in a position of leadership, if we are in a position to influence the person or change the situation, and we don't, then that's not correct. That's inappropriate. We actually need to say something. So this is what the sages do. But you see, there are a lot of sages there, and the one who says something is Marīci. And specifically mentioned in this verse, marīci-mukhyā. Mukhi means the head. So Marīci was the head of all the sages. So they got the most advanced devotee. They got the most senior person to go there. And not that they were all just talking about it amongst themselves and all, you know, yelling and posting on, you know, writing letters and informing the rest of, you know, the Kumaras and everybody else about it. They just said, okay, Marīci, you're the most senior person here. You talk to him. So then Marīci did. And he did it in a way that was full of compassion, that was out of love and concern. So this is also that even when we do need to speak to somebody about something, it shouldn't be in a way to like put them down or, you know, demonize them, but it should be done with compassion, with great respect, as Srila Prabhupada translates it. So they go to Brahmā and they say, our dear father, this is not going to be good for you. This is not going to end well for you. It's going to spoil your reputation. It's basically going to ruin you, like that. And then they also say that it's going to set a bad example for others, you know, because you're the leader and common people follow the leader. So, yeah. And then in addition to that, they prayed. It specifically says that they prayed for Lord Brahmā. They prayed for Krishna to be merciful to him, to help him to overcome this difficulty. So in this way, we need to be well-wishers, always be a well-wisher, and think, how can we act in a way to benefit the person? And not be like Marīci's sons, because we also have the example of what not to do. because Marīci acted very appropriately, but his sons actually, due to their immaturity, they laughed at Lord Brahmā. And we have a Krishna later in the 10th canto, when he's going to recover the sons of his older brothers, basically the previous 6 sons of Devaki, from who were killed by Kamsa. Oh, sorry, let me just look this up. This is chapter 10, canto 10, chapter 85, text 47. I'll just read it to you here. So the Supreme Lord said, he's talking to Bali Maharaj down in Sutala, during the age of the first Manu, the sage Marīci had 6 sons by his wife Urna. They were all exalted demigods, but once they laughed at Lord Brahmā when they saw him preparing to have sex with his own daughter. Because of that improper act, they immediately entered a demoniac form of life, and thus they took birth as sons of Hiranyakashipu. The goddess Yogamaya then took them away from Hiranyakashipu, and they were born again from Devaki's womb. After this, O king, Kamsa murdered them. So in the purport, it's explained, the Acharyas explain that they took birth first as the sons of Hiranyakashipu, and then they took birth from the womb as sons of another demon, Kalanemi, who was Kamsa in his previous life, and then they took birth from the womb of Devaki, sons of Vasudeva and Devaki, and they were killed by the Kamsa, their own father from a previous life. That was a curse that they had. So we don't want to be in that situation where, due to laughing at a devotee's fall down, we end up having to take birth, as in demoniac families, birth after birth in demoniac families. So we may not, literally laugh at someone's fall down or someone's struggle, but in other ways we may take pleasure in it. And that happens, that devotees take pleasure in gossiping about a devotee's fall down, or hearing, they want to hear it, and it's like sense gratification, right? It's like taking pleasure in hearing about a devotee's fall down. Or another way we might take pleasure in it is by gloating that, yeah, I saw that coming, I could see that coming a mile away, I knew that person had this, whatever, they were lusty and whatever. So, as if we're immune to these things, as if, like we're invincible. Or, of course, nowadays, posting it on the social media and getting the satisfaction, that I informed the world about this, Kali Chela devotee that, or something, very vicious descriptions and graphic descriptions of what the person did. So this is not helpful. It's not helpful. It doesn't help the person. It doesn't help others. It doesn't help the movement. It's not pleasing to Srila Prabhupada. And it's not good for us. It will end up like the sons of Marīci. So even we see in the previous verse that Maitreya was hesitant to even mention this pastime. It specifically says he hesitated to mention it because a devotee doesn't like to talk about other devotees' fall downs, especially something like this. So he did it only to teach a valuable lesson. He was like, I was thinking to himself, I don't really want to say this. It's not really a good thing to say, but I will because it's beneficial. So in all cases, we always need to think what is beneficial for the person who's struggling or who had a fall down. What is beneficial for the general devotees? Will it help them to hear about it, or will it not help? Will it disturb them to hear about it? We always just have to try to be a well-wisher to everybody, all parties concerned. And so it's not that these things should be hidden or swept under the carpet, but they should be spoken about by the appropriate person in the appropriate way, with respect and care and compassion, following in the footsteps of Maitreya Muni and also Marīci. So I will end there. If anyone has any questions or comments.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you for a wonderful lecture. You covered so many aspects. It was really wonderful to hear. I have heard that this Lord Brahma giving up his body means that he gave up that mentality.
Mm.
And also, you mentioned that some devotees in leadership position gave up that leadership position because they felt I'm not so pure. But I just wonder, is that according to our Siddhanta, to give up the position, to give up the service? Because isn't it the service itself which is going to purify?
Mm.
So if we give up the service, how are we going to get purified?
Yeah. Well, it's not that you give up service. You keep doing service, just maybe not that you do that service. You might do, a more like a menial service, just a simple service, but keep doing service, like with intensity.
But shouldn't it be according to our nature? So you mentioned that many devotees were sad that this person left his position. So because he was actually according to his nature. So I just want you to maybe elaborate a little bit more on that. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, we can only do a service, we have to do a service that's not just, according to our nature, but that we're qualified for, right? So that if someone has then, maybe they can teach a Bhagavad Gita class to newcomers, right? Maybe, whereas before, maybe they were on the Shastric Advisory Committee or something, they will no longer be on the Shastric Advisory, but they can still give a Bhagavad Gita class, Sunday feast lecture, or like that. They can still use their Brahminical nature. If someone has a Kshatriya nature, they can still, be in charge of, organizing a festival or something like that, but they shouldn't, be on the GBC or something if they're, grappling extensively, having illicit sex or something like that. Right? So you still act according to your nature, but you also act according to your level of qualification.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Like in Brahma's case, it may be accidental or maybe some Yogamaya effect. But in our case, it is not like accidental or Yogamaya, because main thing we are suffering because of this desire to enjoy this material world. So main problem is lust or this desire to enjoy this material world, because that's why we see some people are affected by lust and some people are not affected by lust. And second question is like this changing of body.
Wait, was that a question? That didn't sound like a question.
I want to just this main cause is lust, or like it's a main cause is desire to enjoy this material world.
Same thing. That's what lust is.
Okay, and second,
lust is not just sex desire. Lust, in a general sense, is material desire to enjoy separately from Krishna.
And second thing is changing of body, like as in this case, Brahma's case, he changed body. Mm-hmm. So that is not a solution, because this subtle desire goes in again same another body also. Mm-hmm. So what Brahma wanted to instruct us, like with changing of body, what it means, how this. Yeah, it's like what Mataji says. The thing is that Brahma's body is different from our body. He's a very exalted being, and material bodies are made out of the 8 material elements, right? Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. So different types of bodies have different predominance of different elements. Our body is mainly water and earth, right? So like on the sun planet, the body is made of fire. The Brahma's body is mainly made of intelligence. So when Brahma changes his body, like it was said, he literally changes his way of thinking. He changes his mindset. And as soon as he adjusts his mindset, it's like a new body. So it would be nice if we could do that, right? The trouble with us is that we get stuck in our mindsets. It's hard for us to change our mentalities. It takes a lot of purification, a lot of good association, many years of chanting Hare Krishna to get free from our, material desires and things that pollute our mentality. So that's why if our mentality is very low, then we should, plug into devotional service on a level that is appropriate for our mentality. So we should not go for suicide, no?
What's that?
We should not go for suicide.
No, we shouldn't commit suicide. That's not what it's saying here. Yes, Kirtaneshwar Prabhu.
Thank you for the nice class as usual. Just a reflection that you brought the nice point up that Maitreya did not want to speak about the incident, but he did for the benefit of Vidura and for all who are listening, and so we can take from that we may have to speak about something that might not be pleasant, or it could appear like criticizing a devotee or gossiping, but the intention is really the most important thing. What's the intention and what's the way it's done? He did it very carefully, very contemplatively. And so in the same way, whenever we have to deal with such a situation, we can take that and remember that we can do it with great care and attention as to not to criticize or to degrade the devotee, but to inform someone of a situation without, putting that devotee down. So that was a very nice point. And it's nice to hear that from Shastra, I can take that from Shastra and apply that. So thank you.
This is austerity of speech. Like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that austerity of speech means speaking words that are truthful, pleasing, and beneficial, and also reciting Vedic literature. So in this case, it may not be pleasing, right? This is not a pleasing thing. Hopefully it's not pleasing to hear about somebody's fall down. But if it's truthful and if it's beneficial, then it has to be spoken. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Prabhu.
Just first, small comment that in case of Brahma is mentioned in other shastras that until that point he didn't create anything beautiful.
He didn't?
He didn't create anything beautiful.
Okay.
And then he created something so mesmerizing that he couldn't restrain himself. So in that case, that every single person, doesn't matter how restrained, there is something which will fall with it. So like we know the case, like so then he couldn't restrain himself. But in point of Brahma's leaving his body, in later verses is mentioned that out of his body which he left, something is created out, like snakes or fog or something.
Yeah.
That means that actually he left his body, although his body is made mostly with out of consciousness.
Yeah.
So you may say changing body, changing consciousness. This is his level anyway. So he actually left his body. So it's something which we cannot do ourselves. In that sense.
Yeah, like the old mentality went away. The old intelligence and mind, that subtle aspect went away, and it was transformed into fog. Like
just a small question. There is a person which I know that he had some transgressions, and particularly similar to Brahma, and even now I feel this negativity towards person. I just can't help it. Although now very much this story helps me, Lord Brahmas. But then I remember I didn't see the person for many, many years, and at some point I saw him, and then I was thinking I'm not going to walk towards him. I just avoid him. But somehow I continue, and we met, and then we pay obeisance to each other, and all the thing, negativity is gone. I was so happy with that. But then later I tried to justify the man that actually maybe he's taking like a justification using the same example of Brahma. So in this way you can carry on. So and then negativity again arose in me. So it's just some hints how to overcome that negativity toward that person.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have to protect ourselves, of course, use discrimination in our association, but at the same time not hold resentment towards devotees who have difficulties. Otherwise that becomes our problem, right? We shouldn't make their problem our problem. So they're having a problem. If we, develop animosity or resentment, negative feelings, that becomes our problem. So like I said, we should always be the well-wisher. And we may need to keep a distance if that person, especially if they've done something wrong and they don't recognize it, or they're just trying to make excuses, then that person's probably not great association. But if they're, I did something wrong, I need to improve, and they really, take even with redoubled strength to the process of devotional service, we have to allow for, we have to have faith in the process of bhakti to transform the heart, to purify the heart and mind. And if someone is going through these 3 R's, is recognizing it, is remorseful, and is doing the rectification, then we have to give them the chance to improve, right? And just let it go. Just okay, that person has a history, but look where they've come. Look how they've come back. Look how they've made a comeback, and now they're in good standing again. And then just forget those things. As long as it's genuine, you know, or it may be that some propensities are really deep, and if that person could still potentially be a threat to vulnerable people, then it may be wise to keep that person away from those vulnerable, you know, groups. But we shouldn't think negatively. We just need to be practical in that sense. But we shouldn't hate the person. Just be like, okay, this person is a weakness. Sometimes they victimize people in these categories. Keep them away from people in those categories. Give them service over here, but let them keep doing bhakti somehow or other. If they're remorseful, right? If they're actually sincerely going through the process. Is that helpful? Yeah, ultimately Krishna is in control, and Krishna is everyone's well-wisher. So we're supposed to be representatives of Krishna, right? Devotees are supposed to be doing the will of Krishna. And because Krishna is everyone's well-wisher, Srila Prabhupada would literally sign your ever well-wisher. And we're supposed to be representing, we're supposed to be continuing that mood. So we also have to be well-wishers. And just think, how can I be this person's well-wisher? How can I be the well-wisher of everyone? Okay, I have to end because I have to go. Gandhara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi, Hari Bo.